Alrighty, I am very happy to welcome Theoni Bell to the podcast. Theoni is here to talk to us about how to support a mother and family going through a miscarriage. Theoni has had personal experience with this, so I'm really excited that she gets to share this with us. So, Theoni, could you just share some tips for how to support a mother and then even a family going through a miscarriage?
So the biggest thing I think for helping a family who has suffered this kind of loss would be to be open to sharing your own story. First off, if you've had any losses, because that it's very comforting to feel welcome to share your story. But also something that helped my family was to receive memorials for the baby. We have embroidered ornaments for our Christmas tree, and we have prints that different artists made, and we have memory boxes, and there's so many things on Etsy that you can find. And this is a great way for you to show the family how much you support them, that you're praying for them, but then also for years to come, it's a memory of not only their child, but that love that you tried to give them. There's other things you can send as well: meals, cards, flowers, and prayer cards also from saints who understand loss, so that the children and the parents can reach out to those saints, feel kind of a connection to heaven, and also it's helpful to read about loss as you're grieving. So to read it through the eyes of the saints who were so full of faith and hope is very helpful. One thing I think that people often forget is that the children definitely need support when they lose a sibling. And we really felt loved when we received cards from some of the kids in our homeschool group that were addressed to my children. And they still have those cards, again, as memorials of their sibling, but also because they felt so loved by the faith community at that time. And then there's bigger things you can do as well if you have the time for it. For us, someone set up a meal train. Someone set up a GoFundMe page for donations to help us pay for the funeral and medical costs. You can also just reach out and say, do you need help? Now, I suggest when you do this that you give some suggestions of ways you can help, because often the family is so overwhelmed they can't think of what you could do. So you could help drive the kids to their various events, or you can come help clean the house. You can do grocery runs or order groceries for the family. You can come mow the lawn. And then don't stop checking in. I really felt comforted when I received even just the smallest text message that said, I'm still praying for you, or I'm still here if you need to talk. Emails, phone calls, text messages. If you're not very close to the person, it doesn't matter. I received text messages and emails from total strangers, and just to know that I wasn't alone really helped me to heal afterward. And then finally, be the friend who remembers the anniversary of the loss, and just send a quick note, or send some sort of beautiful Bible verse on that day, so that when that day comes, and those days are often pretty hard on families, that person will still feel the love from the community that they had received in the beginning.
Yeah, I remember meals were so helpful, especially after my second trimester loss. I didn't realize how long it would take me to get back on my feet, so I'm glad you mentioned that. The one thing I was actually very surprised to find when we started doing research into this among Catholic communities, is really the piece of supporting living siblings. More and more people are just saying that this is a really tough topic when it comes to explaining to their other children. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, Theoni, is because of your personal experience, but also because of the book you have written that is going to help parents talk about this with their living children. Could you just share, your personal experience, what led you to write the picture book, Jelly Bean, and how it's going to be helpful to families?
Yes, I really hope it is helpful. We lost our daughter at 27 weeks gestation a few years ago. She was stillborn, and then I spent 5 days in the hospital because I had lost so much blood from the delivery that I needed some extra care. And while I was there, my husband brought me a suitcase full of things I would need, and inside was a brand new journal. And in the cover, my daughter had written, "Mom, write me something," and she was 9 at the time. And all I could think about, of course, was this little perfect baby that I had just lost and how much I missed her and longed for her. And so I began to write her life story and imagine what that was like and how she may have known our love and known our personalities and been part of the family even though she was in the womb. So at first, the book was only for me to hold on to my child and to feel closer to her. But then I noticed that a book like this would have been very helpful for each of my children. I had 3, and they all grieved in their own way. And then I began to share it with my own children. But then as I met more and more moms who had also lost, I received such great feedback on it. Most of them would say, "You brought me to tears, and this is so helpful," or "This fills me with so much hope. This is beautiful." And I realized that I should seek a publisher at that point because the lost community is just so big that there's just so many people who need healing and hope, and especially the children who are left after their sibling goes.
It is really hard, and I'm really excited. I mean, it's bad to say you're excited, but I am very excited that families will now have this resource. It's Jelly Bean, A Baby's Journey to God. And I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes at holyheroesfund.com. But I do just think this is going to be a way to talk to children about what has happened and leave them with a feeling of hope, because it is a really devastating situation to be in. Theoni, do you have any other things you would like to add, either for a mom going through this, who has gone through this, or just how to support a mom? I know you've covered a lot of topics, but any final words about that?
So one thing I would say about the book, I had a child who was asking a lot of questions, and this book was very helpful to her because she would ask the same questions over and over. She's the type of child who would go off with a book and read it a million times. But I had another child who did not want to talk to me about it at all. She couldn't handle the intensity of the emotions she was feeling, and just that's her personality. And I realized a book like this was also good for her because she could take it and go off on her own and not need to share her emotions with me or, feel super exposed and vulnerable. So I really think a book like this is going to help so many kids and just reach them where they're at in their own grieving process, because just like adults, they all are going to grieve in their own way. The other thing I would suggest, along with praying to your children who are in heaven, is to pray to saints, like I mentioned earlier, who have lost children or lost siblings. And just a few, St. Zélie and Louis Martin, the parents of St. Therese, they lost 3 infants and a child at age 5. I found reading the letters of St. Zélie, where she talks about those losses, was very healing for me. St. Catherine of Siena was a twin, and her twin died at birth. And St. Catherine of Sweden, she took care of women after they lost babies. And for siblings, obviously St. Therese, as I mentioned, she lost 4 of her siblings, and there's even some writings from her on how she felt about that. And then St. Jose Maria Escriva, he lost 3 sisters. One was 9 months, one was 5 years, and one was 8 years. There are so many saints, and I really think that they help you during this time. I've talked to my children who say praying to the saints help them at this time. So reach out to those who are in heaven with your child, and God's definitely going to help you heal through this process.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Tell people where they can find you, along with your book, Jelly Bean, which will be at holyheroes.com.
Yes, so you can find out more about my story of loss and other things I've written at theonibell.com, TheoniBell.com.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that's also linked to the show notes.
Thank you so much, Clara. I'm so happy to be able to share this story with everyone.
Thank you so much for coming on.